crew, and welcome back to Trenches. I'm your host, Milan. On this show, we have unfiltered conversations with entrepreneurs in the messy middle. We dig into the experiments, defining decisions, disasters, pivots, and breakthroughs that shaped their companies long before the world was watching. Before we get into it, if you like this episode, which I know you will, please take a moment and like, subscribe, and share this episode to your group chat. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Trenches, the podcast. We are here with Bo Brainerd today, the founder and CEO of Ophelia, the IRL execution layer for dating apps, social platforms, and AI, turning online connections into real-world experience. Like many of us navigating dating, Bo recognizes the biggest problem in dating, the IRL experience. She is redefining how technology mediates human connection, prioritizing emotional intelligence, design, and lived experience over cold efficiency. Rooted in a distinctly Gen Z way while still being sensible, is intentionally creating the kind of company tech culture didn't expect and often resists. Finding a softness, aesthetics, and intuition can be a really powerful code. Hi, Bo. Welcome to Trenches, the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be with you.
This is amazing. Bo and I connected on TikTok and have had a few chats while we've been in the comment section. So glad that you're here today and really, really excited to dig into what you are building.
I'm so excited. I never thought TikTok would bring me to here and you, but I'm so glad it did. So happy to be here.
Incredible. So I always like to start out with our signature question. What trench are you in right now?
Right now, I am in the trench with definitely rolling out our API, kind of like what you were saying. I think tech right now is in such a cool moment with human connection and just dating and relationships. So just trying to get a bunch of dating apps and founders and just tech bros in the season of romance and love. That's kind of where we're at with rollout. But I'm excited. I'm loving it. I'm loving getting everyone hyped about romance and connection and changing the landscape. So, I can't really complain.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dig into what Ophelia is.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So Ophelia we build infrastructure that helps platforms move online connections to in-person. And that means real world experiences, planning, booking, and showing up in real life. We're the behind the scenes back end for my non-technical girlies and my non-technical people. We're the back end framework that helps these other bigger platforms like a Hinge or a Tinder basically help their users plan that actual date, first date, second date, whatever the platform needs, and kind of just helping them establish immediately what should we do. It takes over that what are we gonna do or what should we do. So that's Ophelia.
That is amazing. And just for a little bit into those layers on top of the apps that we've heard before, Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, how does Ophelia and how do you layer on top of that? What does layer mean in the tech space for our non-technical girlies and boys?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question because we originally started off as a dating app. So that layer comes from years of just tinkering and planning and kind of figuring out who we were in the market. But the layer is essentially the back end kind of looks like you have your classic user experience, right? What you see immediately on the app. So you have your DMs, you have the actual matching algorithm. Who you're meeting is an algorithm in itself with just all those filters and stuff like that. So we're kind of just the next process. So when you're in DMs chatting with someone, or sometimes if it's just the matching work, a little function, a little add-on, kind of think of it like a widget that these companies will use to initiate a date. As soon as any in-person plans are talked about, that's kind of where we enter the chat, literally and technically.
That is amazing. And so you originally started as a dating app. And you said that you've now transitioned into this layer. When you talk about that transition, and we'll go way into your background, is what is the number one question you get about Ophelia?
The number one question, kind of like from people and like the people from TikTok and just like in general, is always like, oh, can Ophelia get me a boyfriend? And I'm like, no, but we can book you like that first date, like, oh, but we can't fix anything else. But on a deeper level, it's always been like, why hasn't this type of technology been implemented yet? Like, why tech hasn't gotten to this level? Like, you think about these giants like Hinge, Bumble, Tinder, the Match Group, why haven't they focused on in-person connection? And the answer is that most of them are just not focused on that. Like, they're just not focused on that engagement. They're not focused on like that, like first date kind of all the tumultuous chaos that comes with that. They're more so focused on engagement, which is fine, focus on engagement, not execution. We've had social media, we've had dating apps, AI for a good time, a good like couple years. But the hardest part through all of that is not actually getting people together. I think like the discovery part is fixed now. You can meet so many different people from TikTok, from Instagram, from so many different places and platforms. Now the problem is, how do we execute that plan? How do we make sure that we say we're going to do something, we say we're going to like meet up, but like, are we actually like, am I going to get ghosted, in like the next couple days? So that's kind of at the end of the day, what I think not only Ophelia, but my mission in this is all about. I care deeply about how people connect and how they experience love and how they use tech to experience connection. So that question is kind of like the most, I think, like our North Star of like, how can we get people to use tech to essentially connect with people in person? And we're building that infrastructure to help human connection flourish and not replace it.
Absolutely. That made me think about when I first moved here to Chicago. I did connect with someone, not through a dating app. It was actually out in the wild, which was incredible. And we were supposed to go do something, and I didn't care because I was new to the city. I was like, you could quite literally tell me to go look at a tree and tell me it's a famous tree, and I would have done it. But it was really interesting I don't drink anymore. I drink very sparingly, but pretty much never. And so when he first asked to hang out, I made it very clear, but in a very nice way. I was like, yeah, I am down to do with anything. I'm new to the city. Just an FYI, I don't drink. And what I meant by that was like, hey, if your go-to is like, let's go to a bar, then I don't want to go through the like awkwardness of saying, no, like blah, blah, blah. Like, I'd rather him have all the information, make it as easy as possible from the jump. But after that, he basically ghosted me. And I took that as not that he didn't want to talk to me or anything like that, almost like he had no idea what to do with a person who didn't drink when there's like 1,054 things to do when you don't drink. So how would like Ophelia help in that arena? Give me some personal help.
That would be our superpower, actually. That's a perfect user case. First of all, everything happens for a reason. So maybe, he wasn't the one, but I love that kind of stuff. I hate to be like that, but I love like the specific niche, like, how can we help user cases like your own? And we kind of just help out with the AI and kind of like with the date planning process. I think a lot of not just men, but even women too, like our generation haven't been used to like planning something meticulously for dating and connection, because our dating has been overruled by like these dating apps, and it's not as natural as it was like 20, 30 years ago with our parents or even our grandparents' generation. So we're kind of like reintroducing how to plan a simple date, how to ask someone out in person, or how can we make the steps, because it sometimes isn't just going to a bar. Sometimes it is, okay, like planning these tickets. Are there two seats together? Where would the other person want to sit? Not just me, Are they, if we're going to a concert, like, do they want to be in the front row? Are they kind of that kind of person? Or should we be more in the quiet back? Like, those are all the things that our tech and the kind of scrapers and AI and models that we build in our API, it's kind of a key to a door. So our key allows these apps and platforms to unlock basically all the planning, all of those little minor details to help their.
I loved how you used the key to the door. Now I want to dig into what was that key for you. Back in college at Boston College, you said that you studied philosophy, and that really shaped your perspective on modern dating, the issues, and how everyone seems to be facing it in the culture today. So tell me, what was that initial key for you to start thinking about this paradox and how it unfolded? And then we can go on to like the tension and the pain points and how you really figured out the best way to solve it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I owe everything to Boston College. That was like probably the best 4 years of my life. No, probably not, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I hate to be that kind of adult that's like, oh yeah, college. But, I was always really obsessed with kind of the connections about human connection and the systems of like humanity and just like people and what it means to really know someone. I think Boston College is a great place that allows and encourages that kind of conversation and introspection. So what does it mean? Like I would always be asking like, oh, experiencing my, Gen Z, living up my like dreams of what I thought college would be. And then actually getting there and watching going from movies and seeing college and how it's depicted to actually living it. And just like seeing, how, people at the bar interacted or what it was like to like, have a college, relationship or what dating looks like in college versus high school. Those were all certain questions that I liked thinking about because I was experiencing it, my friends were experiencing it, and we had so many ways to communicate. We had our little like class of 2025 group chat, we had Snapchat, Instagram, we had TikTok. And through all of this connection, people, especially girls and guys, I think boys too, it's like a huge thing. There's a huge disconnection and they call it like the loneliness epidemic. But, people were feeling more separated. We had just gotten off COVID, but these people were feeling more afraid to approach one another. Whereas I come in and I'm like, hello, hello, everyone. Like, I don't really, yeah, like, what's up? I am super carefree in that way. But I was so confused and so baffled with the fact that people didn't actually naturally go up to people like that, meeting people who were not necessarily as outgoing. So I was, super persistent on kind of discovering and conquering that little niche of BC that ended up being how the entire United States and most countries exist too right now, living in this digital world.
Yeah, for sure. And you were talking a little bit about your own story there and that tension that you started to feel. When did that tension really manifest and you became convicted to say, we have to fix this? And
Right.
I want to be the person to fix it.
Of course.
Just be like, I'm ready to take on this thing. Like, when were you so convicted by this tension? Was there something that happened or just you've heard enough stories and you said somebody needs to fix this? When did you truly sign on the dotted line and say, I'm going to figure this out?
My dotted line moment was personally with me, kind of dating, being a young girl, being single, being on the apps. I think like I always tell like this like one little story that me and my friends were gonna like finally go on the dating apps. We gave in. We're like, yes, we'll just do it for one night. We went on, I did my profile. I signed up for all the Hinge, Tinder, Raya, Bumble. I think I had all of them. I had accounts with every single niche new dating app. And I had so many matches. I think I had like 500 matches and not one single match converted to like an actual date. And that was my like moment where I was like, what am I doing? What has my life come to? Like people are matching, talking about dates and constantly, but no one's actually going on a date. I kind of had it at that point. It was my like, this something needs to change. All my friends are like, fed up, not getting in successful relationships. And then turning around and being, oh, is this something about me? That's like the worst thing, right? Especially as women and guys do it too. Oh, like this person didn't match with me. Is there something wrong with me? Like, am I not good enough? Am I not like cute enough? For me, that wasn't necessarily the issue, but watching someone else that you care about, it was my best friend going through that kind of like thought process. I was like, something needs to change because whether or not these dating apps are intentionally trying to have their users go through that and that just having that in general, having users go through kind of a moment where they think it's something wrong with them,
Mhm.
that's where I'm like, okay, like, your tech needs to change, whether or not you like it or not, or whether or not you're aware of it or not. We can't have, the 18, 19, 20-year-olds just, breaking down and going hard on themselves because someone didn't match with them back. That's not okay.
Yeah, that is so true. The insecurities that can develop
Yeah.
over your dating experience, because even if
It's
you're
horrible.
excited to start dating,
Yeah.
you're nervous like anybody would be
Yeah.
to get on the apps and put yourself out there. But at the end of the day, you are kind of excited, and it can have a very long lasting impression on you and your self
Yes.
worth if dates don't come through or people feel like you're ghosting them all the time. And then, of course, we do have the male loneliness epidemic, which
Yeah.
we may touch
It's an
on.
issue. Yeah, it's an issue, and I think a lot of these bigger platforms like to dance around it, which I don't know why. Let's be proactive instead of reactive. There's already the issue. The more we can do to help it, the more we have and live in a better society. I think there's nothing wrong with talking about it. The more we talk about it, the more we can solve problems. I'd say for me, that's kind of where I like working with these apps because I get to bring to their attention because some of them are already 30s, 50s, they're already married, right? Like they've already gone through relationships and dating before these apps and before they had to
Mm.
rely on apps. I think Gen Z, we predominantly find other people through dating apps, but kind of bringing to their attention that like this is kind of what women or just young girls and guys experience through being a part of your platform and holding that weight, at least at Ophelia, that's something that not only but I make aware of on the team that it's a huge responsibility to be a part of someone's love stories and to be just involved in love and in person that, it can go sideways. I think that's maybe why some of these apps, don't do the in-person connection and everything. But I think it's to the point where it's time, right? I make sure that if we are being a part of this partnership or this platform, that we are also bearing the weight of these people sometimes get married, like they'll get
Hmm.
engaged. These are people's first loves. And I think that that's just something super delicate. And sometimes these platforms aren't aware of that, and their teams are like, oh, yeah, but it's not something to just shoo over. It's, again, it's something that I care very closely. And that's the whole reason why I'm doing it so that we have flourishing love stories. And I love love.
Oh my
Not to be a
gosh.
little like emotional, but yeah, no, I do love love.
We need a Hallmark movie sponsored by Ophelia.
We'll make it happen. Give us like give us a couple months, give us a couple years. Like that'd be the dream.
Hallmark, we're talking to you, Netflix, Warner Brothers,
One of
everybody.
one
We
of
need
them. I love
we need
that.
a HBO Max. We need to start a series here. And that is actually so cool. Have you noticed any friction based on age? I know we've talked a little bit about gender, but based on, like you said, other app founders, other
Mhm.
players in the market that have been around here who the actual founders or teams behind them are much older. They haven't experienced the same dating culture that we are right now. Have you had any age related friction in the Ophelia building process or getting partnerships with other brands and things?
Yeah, the friction more or less lies, I think, with kind of communicating with teams. I don't think, especially as like a young founder, and I think that's where kind of like the difference comes in. I don't think I have as many issues with kind of younger founders, kind of getting them on board with like the in person because they understand it. They understand they're living through it with me. I think with like older generation, just executives and like teams, I don't think they understand like how pressing the issue is because again, like I said, like they're kind of already married, they have their kids, they're living
Mm-hmm.
their lives, like they already like did all the things, like they don't need to do it again, right? But kind of like to that point of like how we used to be a dating app, we allowed anyone age. Like people are like, oh, like let's just make it for like young people. I'm like, well, like this is an issue. There are single parents, there are single mothers, fathers, there's people who haven't married anyone. Let's just open it up. And I I think, again, because love and relationships and human connection kind of transcends age, it transcends all things, right? It's like the all encompassing thing that we don't really understand. It's just kind of a human, unique and native experience. And so to put an age or even like sometimes with appearances, I notice that right now, like a lot of the dating apps are introducing new filters with appearance filters, which, I don't necessarily agree with, but that's for another conversation. But kind of certain stuff like that, like love is a kind of like soul to soul, personality, person to person experience. And I don't think that getting in person and connecting with someone in person is necessarily just a Gen Z issue. It's kind of an all encompassing generational
Yeah.
2026, we need to figure this out right now issue.
She's like,
Like,
the time is of the essence, you
yeah, I'm
guys.
kind of cracking the whip right now on these platforms, but it's time.
I mean, it's interesting because we also hear so often in the news right now about the birth rate. And it's all about the birth rate, the birth rate, the birth rate.
Yeah.
And to your point, to Ophelia's point, we need to fix the root cause, which
Right.
is people aren't even meeting people in real life. Like
Yeah.
you can't, I know some people skip steps along the way. I totally get it.
Yeah, totally
But
fine.
there's a lot of steps that come between you meeting a person and then
Right.
us getting to repopulating the planet. And the news is only covering repopulating the planet. Like you go to get coffee and you're like, hello, and you can like do it. Like
Yes,
when we
that
all know that's not how it happens.
no, it is not. I think tech and especially consumer tech right now should be designed, especially now in 2026 forward, specifically around getting people in person, getting people to be more present, more connected, more human, like more human. If you think about even just TikTok and Instagram, performance and being performative is not natural to humans. We're not supposed to be on to act and have platforms that are for us to just like get on a world stage, right? Like it's usually kind of like if you have important things to say, if you want to be in conversation, if you want to, but that's not our entire personality, right? Like the way that you talk to your mom and dad isn't the way that we're going to appear here on a podcast. And I think that's like kind of where social media and these apps have kind of moved us towards
Mhm.
and have ultimately caused the disconnection in humans. So yeah, the population issue is kind of something that I hold again near and dear to my heart because it does relate to human connection and I do have opinions on it. But do I think that's like the time for today? No, but I do think that you're spot on. You're spot on with the fact that, you can't talk about and begin to talk about how do we solve this like kind of children and especially women too. You see the statistics, women aren't getting married, women aren't having children, they're prolonging marriage. And we can't even begin to talk about those things if we haven't even solved the root issue of like, have we taught anyone to plan a date? Have we taught anyone to make a reservation or manage reservations? Because it's not just like dinner sometimes, it's concert tickets, dinner, a show, a trip. People can't even manage that. So let's start there. And I think that's, again, what I kind of talk about with other founders too, who are in the dating app space or who are in the consumer social platform space, where I'm like, I don't think we need another app. I don't think we need another, knick-knack feature. I think we need to go back to the basics, find the root cause, and that is people are not getting in person together. And right now, in person and the real world is the only way to legitimize anything. You don't really have a real relationship if you're just talking on the phone together or like texting each other. I don't consider that a real world relationship. You're not in person together. You don't even know what each other look like, and can you handle the fact that we are imperfect? We don't have the beauty filter on. You might be a little bit shorter than you imagined. Your pitch of voice and all of that might not sound the way it does online. So
So
all of
true.
those things are so special and unique to in person. And it's like that magic of imperfection that we're kind of like missing right now. And it's time to start embracing it again.
Absolutely. Wabi sabi, everybody. Wabi sabi.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna like appear in person with a beauty filter. Like, hello. I wish.
I wish, I wish, I wish. So, for this next section, let's get a little techie.
Okay.
I love how you talked about consumer apps. I know everybody out there may not be super into tech like we
Mhm.
are in building these different things. So, what is actually the difference between a consumer app and an API layer? And what does that look like as a first time founder? I know a lot of people say, oh, I want to build my own app, but you have done now both and you're
Mhm.
choosing to go the layer route.
Mhm.
What would be your thought process there and any advice between the differences of those two things for a first time founder?
Yeah, what a great question. One of my founder mentors who had, previously
Hmm.
exited, he was in tech, he's an investor in tech, had mentioned to me like, "Are you okay with, you know, being the successful founder or do you want the successful company?" And it took me a minute to be like, "What are you talking about? Like, what does that mean?" And I think that for me at least, like everyone can interpret it a little bit differently. But it was, I am not doing this for me. I think a lot of new founders, especially with the help of like incredible platforms like Lovable or Bubble or even like Claude, incredible AI platforms that I absolutely adore and respect the founders of those and the dev teams of those apps. But for me, it wasn't necessarily like I did not want the hi, I'm Bo Brainerd, I'm the founder. Going from a young founder being, I think, 18 when I first incorporated, my first company, like that's
Wild.
really young. I had a company before I could legally drink. So or do anything. And I had like the vision of like, oh, we're gonna be this, tech company. But to your point, like being a young founder is like very, very different experience to being a second time founder. But I had decided, like I wanted an app. I did the whole journey. I think being a founder is just a journey of rejection and figuring out like who you are and finding product market fit. And we did all the steps, right? Like it wasn't just, I was like, oh, let's just be an API layer. Let's just do B2B contracts. I had no idea what that meant. And I do owe a lot of the kind of reflection on conversations with mentors and conversations with, investors and like not just deciding, oh, we're going to pivot. You know what I mean? I think you
Mhm.
need to have your stakeholders and like kind of conversations, but you do also have to move fast, right? I think a lot of being a part of the team and startups, especially early stage, is a lot of sometimes scrapping everything that you've ever built and being okay with not being fully connected to the code that you spent hours working on because someone else needs something from you or a partner is like, we don't want that or we don't like that. Like that's not what we wanted. And I think my final kind of what you just said, like the dotted line of like switching from a consumer app to a B2B business was our distribution. I cared more about getting people in person and I cared more about the mission and what we were doing. And if that meant handing over our technology to bigger players that can distribute faster and better than you kind of have to let go of your ego. In every business deal, every conversation that I have with users or even with, investors, there's no ego. I don't walk in with an ego. I am there to learn and I'm there to serve my customers best. And that is getting people in person. So that's kind of why I was like, you can't like trying to feed the beast and be this mega giant consumer app wasn't in the cards for us. And whether or not like, a founder, you can be like, I had dreams of having my app on someone's phone. Like, okay, like you can have dreams of also making, millions of people happy and flourishing in love and skip the millions of dollars that you will be paying in consumer marketing. So that's kind of where I came from.
Gotcha. And what is that for those out there still dreaming and everything like
Yeah,
that?
go for
What
it.
does that cost look like? Like, what is the difference cost wise as being like a solo founder, young founder of building a consumer app versus building a layer? Even in my little knowledge about the tech
Yeah.
space and building apps, I've heard of founders having to sink in, 40 grand into building a consumer app the first time around, let alone it working, debugging, and like everything else that comes after that.
It's insane. It's insane. I'm not even gonna try to sugarcoat it. To have a startup and to run a startup, they like the saying is like cash is king. And for us, at least, like being an early stage founder, let alone young founder, everyone's journey is different, right? Like, if you raise a bunch of money in the beginning, that's fine. You're going to be relying on investor cash and capital like that. I came into the business more or less saying like I wanted to have a working product, right? Like I wanted something that has a solid technical foundation, and I want a genuine business. I care more about, is this something that people actually want? Going back to the basics, like Paul Graham's essays, I read a lot of those in the beginning, and it really just stuck with me. And even coming from kind of Boston College, financial, oriented school, even my parents, our family, like just our values. To me, it was more important to have a successful business on paper and in the weeds and in the budget and everything than to blow a bunch of money on marketing, because I think people don't realize when coming into the consumer space, you need a lot of money to not only market your ideas, but to have a team that is going to cancel out the noise of every single other product out there. I think the beautiful thing about Gen Z and all the new incredible companies that these new founders are creating is the fact that we do have TikTok and we do have platforms that allow people to be authentic. I think 20 years ago, that wouldn't have been possible, but it's just a beautiful thing, at least for me, to see kind of like first-time founders as well, because while I am still a first-time founder, I haven't started a new venture. I think I've like crossed the layer of, like, all right, this is my 4th year now doing this. I'm not necessarily in like the beginning trenches, but I'm in like a different trench. So it's interesting. And I'm super excited for these first-time founders to kind of get in the weeds of like the tech. I learned how to code like, years ago, like when I first started this with mentors of like, okay, like these are the basics. And then you just like learn from being a part of different teams and meeting with people who are 10 times smarter than you. It's so fun. I love that part of it. I don't like it when there's bugs and like I can't figure out the code, but I do like it when I can at least contribute something to all parts of the team, not just, operations.
Yeah. So you said you had to learn how to code. I was going to say, when you were first building out your
Yeah.
team at
Yeah.
19 and even
Yeah.
until now, even though it's been 4 years, that's crazy. What did that initial team look like? Who were
Yeah.
like your first hires and things like that? And again, most founders take a lot of the brunt of it themselves, but you were building
Right.
as a non-technical founder.
Right.
And what does the team look like now, 4 years later?
Yeah. My biggest piece of advice for, I think, first-time founders, or I think like founders that don't have access to like institutional capital that can allow them to, hire out and just solve a bunch of issues with higher up executives, or like, second-time founders, or at least people coming from those companies who are starting their own ventures can use kind of their resources in that way. But for at least for people who are just starting out, the best resource is to go to local universities. There are hungry, smart, talented kids that was my main source of just, devs, engineers. They're way more knowledgeable in the tech and in the new tech that has been being produced. I would love, in the beginning, if I could have just hired out and just off put a bunch of the work. But I think in that there's kind of a nice, I get to like pat myself on the shoulder and be like, this is a self-made moment where I built everything from the ground up. And if everything burned today, I could do the same again tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's kind of a skill that you don't really just, you have to like experience it and live it. And going to your university, I mean, I went to Boston College. I'm lucky to be able to like go to like, a talented school like that and say, hey, like we're hiring, or like, hey, we need interns, or like, do you want to be a part of this startup? But it's also like in the hub of like innovations, the best city, I think, for colleges with talented young people who are starving to be a part of a startup, or starving to be a part of a team or a new product. You have Harvard, you have MIT, like that's who we reached out to. And also by nature of, again, TikTok, a lot of the students had like heard about me, heard about Ophelia, and we're just like, what is this? Like, we're interested. So that's how we kind of like had our first moment of, this is who's going to be a part of our team. And then like now it's just like kind of, okay, like going to the adults again, like, like kind of reverting back now that we can.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true. I actually put out in my threads a few weeks ago, half looking for an intern, but also saying, like,
Yeah.
what do you actually need to do to get an intern? Which is such a funny
Yeah.
question. I was an internaholic during
Oh,
college. I
yes.
had
Me too.
every internship possible because I was like, I am going to be one of those people that gets a job within
Yeah.
2 weeks of graduation. And I did. But yeah, there is a whole world of interns out there, and I almost forgot about them for a minute. But after hearing that, I'm like, everybody get back out there to those college kids and the students, because it means so much to them and their careers.
Yeah.
but you also get to have like quite literally your ears to the ground because they are
Mhm.
so in the know.
I love interns. Like I love having interns. It's probably like the most cool and like cute thing to like be able to I mean I probably shouldn't have used those adjectives, but like the little like exercise of like having like a little picture of yourself when you were super young and
Hmm.
then like appreciating them, and who they've become. I think mentorship is the most important thing to building anything successful. Mentors have been a thing since forever. Like that's how I got involved with philosophy as well. But to have and be someone's mentor is something special. I take pride in forming great connections with the people that I work with. It's the hardest thing. I had to learn that from the very beginning of like, they say the hire fast and fire fast, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to like let go of someone on the team who while you might be friends with them, but they are not benefiting the company and the company's trajectory and progress. That's the worst breakup of them all. I think that's literally, you would not imagine the actual like extent of how upset that I get when we have to, let someone go, especially someone who's been in there in the early days. But again, I put the company first above all, and I make sure that things have to get done. And like running a business is completely different than just being an employed member on the team. And so I think there's like a lot of difference between that. I think if people have experience like being just like an employee, it's completely different than owning and running a company.
Yeah, for sure. That is very true. And as a woman, obviously,
Yeah.
and
Well, yes.
building this layer and this platform and just nobody's seeing it before, or people are seeing it and they've just ignored it. How do you think being a female founder
Mhm.
has played a role in your like natural ability to see these obstacles and to see these perfect
Yeah.
little gaps in the market?
I think being a woman is my absolute advantage. I hate when, the common question is, oh, how does it feel to be a woman in the industry? And I'm like, give me a better question. Like, ask me, like, kind of ask me something technical. Ask me about how the tech works or how I've built something. The biggest misconception about the industry, especially tech itself, is that human connection, human technology, dating apps begin and end with those types of apps, right? Technology and anything related to human connection is just allowed, and the boundaries are just dating apps or like it's Snapchat, like Instagram. And I think that's like super false. And that's again closed-minded thinking. Tech is all about innovation, it's about creating something new out of nothing. And most people think that the problem is just with matching or better chats or better meetups. I respect and celebrate the founders who are doing those in-person dinners, setting people up, the matchmaking events, these new dating apps. It takes a lot of work. And I think that like they're moving in the right direction of getting people in person. But what we're realizing, and kind of with the tech that we've been witnessing with these other partners, is that the real problem is just the infrastructure part, right?
Mhm.
How do you move interest to action in the real world? And while I do think that yes, these matchmaking events are amazing. I love them. I love going to them. But do I think that that's going to solve this generational and societal systemic issue? No. I think we need tech to compete with tech, right? Like this is a
Yeah.
technological rooted problem. The only way to fight fire with fire is fire. So that's kind of where we're at. Mark Zuckerberg had quoted, we all have masculine and feminine energy, and everyone blew up on him of like, what does that even mean? Like Mark has gone downhill. And I honestly think he was absolutely spot on with that, in that we all have masculine and feminine energy. When to use them is the most important part. And I think using my feminine energy and intuition and being able to connect and use my empathy and my emotional intelligence actually allows me to break through the noise of sometimes the, infamous tech bros and the infamous, dev teams and software developers to say like, no, like this is a human issue that can be supported by tech, but it's not a predominantly dating app issue.
Yeah, for sure. And zooming out in the future of innovation in tech, what
Yeah.
do you see as the future of dating and human interaction? So we can think 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years. Like, who knows?
Who knows? That's the great question of who knows. I can do a bunch of, models on what I think. I hope that the future of dating and romance is all in person and that we get back to genuinely connecting with one another. I think right now is the most important, and we've closed out so many cycles, right? Like we're kind of in the thick of it. It'd be an ultimate victory to as like a country and as a society to finally close the chapter of, disconnection and divisiveness and just blame and hatred, and kind of move towards that loving, supportive, community-centered society. That's my dream, and that's why I will continue to do this, I think, for the rest of my life, whether that's through Ophelia or not. Building technology, and when I want to build a foundational, product that is not just a viral app or has a viral moment, this is something that can sustain years, generations. In person is something that's, again, transcends all things as well. It'll never go away. I don't think dating apps will go away either. I think there's going to be a lot more of them. I think that AI is going to have, a lot of influence in how dating works in the future. Do I think it's going to replace it? Do I think that looks like, having chatbots or AI girlfriends? No. I think all of the little like scary news bits are just there to like be a shock factor. But I think, AI is there to, at least the beholders of the AI are going to help try and use it to kind of just like let people meet people who are more connected and more kind of similar to you. And while I think that's a great and amazing thing, again, love and relationships cannot be automated. They can't be defined by someone's height, someone's weight, someone's appearance, someone's music taste. It's really defined by those imperfect in-person moments when you sometimes slip on the sidewalk and trip over your feet and someone laughs at you. Like that's kind of what happens sometimes to me. Or the little moments where you have food in your teeth and you're like, oh my God, like you know what I mean? Like it's stuff like that. Or hearing someone's laugh, or like, being at a concert together. Just having people kind of being human together. That's where I hope to see the future of dating and relationships.
Absolutely. I love that, because just thinking about dating right now, I'm like, it really can't get any worse. I think that's also like the across the board, just like thought process, is that it can't get any worse than it is right
Yeah.
now. So it only has to get better. Like the future is just like, it's going to get better, because I don't think it can get much worse.
Mhm.
And hopefully we'll have things like Ophelia and just more brands and companies, like you said, within the space that are actually trying to get to the root problem, not just trying to put band-aids on the symptoms that basically come out of not having human connection. And we could do a whole podcast episode on human connection, because that includes, social media. Yes, finding your own hobbies and interests, going out to the movie theater. Like human connection really does connect to everything. How we don't hang out to our neighbors anymore, how we have no idea who lives in the house next to us or the apartment above us, or what those community events look like. I know a thing on social media right now is everyone wants a village, but they don't want to be a villager. And
Mhm.
there's a few creators out there that are really putting in the effort to figure out how to be a villager, because
Mhm.
our moms had it and our dads had it, but
Yes.
that was just how society was, human connection. Like neighborhoods
Yeah.
were much closer, kids played outside, all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
those opportunities don't exist even on a platonic, friendly level anymore, let alone an intimate relationship one.
And that's kind of where I think most of my shouting from the rooftops of this is an issue, or these apps, let's work together, because I I hate to think about, if my kids one day are, asking me, "Oh, like what was it to date? How did you meet your father?" Or "How did you meet my dad?" Or, stuff that, and like to have them, or to even like think about witnessing them going through dating issues because people don't meet in person, and having them be like, people met in person, or like you went on dates, like that to me is my worst fear. That is my worst fear. And honestly, if you were to ask me at like 10 p.m. before I go to bed, like I think I would cry. Like that is the reason why I do, if not all of this, is so that my future kids can be able to grow up in a world and just like a society where they know that love exists and it's real, and community exists, and they can go to these in-person events and experiences and know that they might meet someone, and that they can say hi to anyone if they see someone at the door, they can open it for them. That's kind of my worst fear. And I think it does stem back to like philosophy and like reading all these books and these like just like infamous stories of love. And you hear about Cleopatra and like historical moments where love is something so beautifully intertwined. There's always a hint of it. And then to think about now where we look at like these love stories and we're like, that's not real. Like, that's not true. Like, that would never happen for me. Like, that's not okay, and that's just it makes me so sad. It makes me genuinely very sad to even consider that as a possibility.
Yeah. It seems like you lead with such empathy and
I
compassion.
try. I try.
And
Yeah, I
you
try.
really do have this overall just vision of love and romance and everything like that. And I just love that so much. And I know that doesn't necessarily fit the tech founder space.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, it does not.
So, how has your empathy and compassion been challenged or mistreated while being a tech founder? I know we talked a little bit about it in fundraising and things like that, but
Yeah.
how has it been challenged for you?
Well, I'm like, I just had to like take a deep breath. It's something that I like, yeah, it's something that I have to deal with on a daily basis, right? I know my worth, right? I think that's something that allows me to keep going is that I know that I'm competent. I know that I'm smart. I had a background in politics before I got into tech. So dealing with, men and just older, even sometimes older women too, who aren't familiar or used to having an outwardly and confident feminine woman, especially a young woman, because I am young to be doing this. But that's a misconception I run into a lot. Like, the first at one, because I'm young, I'm Gen Z. I am too idealistic. I don't take things seriously, which I
Yeah.
think is probably what people made the most notes on is that I think I take things too seriously and that I'm a little too passionate and kind of, like crack the whip kind of person. But people, I think more on the technical side of like where I face is kind of the most challenging part is because the stereotypical, developer and software engineer is kind of that nerdy boy who doesn't really care about what they look like, even the girls. I think initiatives kind of like Carly Kloss did with Girls Who Can
Good girls who
Code. And
code.
yeah, that was kind of a great step. And I think that was a great initiative because there are a lot of feminine, outwardly spontaneous and I think outgoing girls that are also technical and have technical brains. And people often underestimate how much strategy, grit, it really takes to run a company and grit to like withstand kind of those misconceptions. It's, quite frankly, it's quite easy to just walk into a room if you're a guy and be taken, seriously. Where is the challenge in that? I think women have to deal with, there's a lot of women now who are like, you just ignore those stereotypes or just ignore people saying that. But I'm like, the people who are saying that are the people who don't have to encounter it and who have to deal with it on a daily basis. And there's no issue and there's no problem in acknowledging that sometimes with the current state of just like how some older or just some people, because it doesn't matter about age, how some people might have stereotypes of who a founder should look like or what a founder should be, especially early stage. So in reality, no one really knows what goes behind the scenes except for you. It's all smoky mirrors. I know the sacrifices that I've had to make. I know what it takes to be at least where I am today. So it's a misconception, and that's you just brush it off your shoulder and you keep going because again, the only karma that there is to outsmart them and outpace them, and karma will catch the cat. Like basically like that.
For sure. And that really brings in like your funding rounds and how you're
Yes,
navigating the space as a founder in an empathetic space for yourself and you really being purpose driven in your mission. But then
absolutely.
when you're fundraising and you're having these VC conversations, there's so many unspoken rules when it comes
Mhm.
to navigating fundraising and that process. So, what has been one of the biggest learnings or learning curves
Ooh.
within the fundraising stage that was an unspoken rule that you just didn't find out until you either experienced or you were like, "That was weird," and then maybe, like, Googled it or something. You're like, "Is that normal?"
I think I have a lot of TikToks that explain my experiences on kind of that journey and that experience as a female founder raising venture capital money. I think one that I can kind of connect with most women is that like because I am young, because I think a lot of, the people who are investors, the right ones will come to you.
Mhm.
You don't need to beg for their money and you don't need to like knock on their doors being like, hi, hi. I, I'm also just not a person of desperation at any point. I am single. I remain to be single, but not because it's like, oh, I don't want to date. It's because I don't really care enough. Don't need to put myself out there in a desperate I need a boyfriend. And then it goes to dating is like venture capital, like raising money. And I know that sounds silly to say, but I always like to say that to people because you're not finding just someone with money. You're really finding someone, again, mentorship. You're finding someone who will be there for the long run. Dating is kind of the journey that you take with raising venture capital money because you're looking for a mentor. You're looking for someone who will stick with you throughout all of the problems, all of the issues that you're going to run into, the ups and downs, everyone talking bad about you, everyone talking about good about you. You want someone who's going to be sticking in your corner and who actually believes in the vision and the purpose of your company. I think my experience with the bad apples will probably continue to happen. And I think my mission in that and making those types of videos is to help only younger female founders, kind of just warn them and just prep them to make sure that they understand that this is something that like most, if not all women have to go through, but then also making sure that we do better. We ensure that, it sticks with business, right? Like, especially for women, if we're there to do business, let's stick to business. We don't need to go into if I'm dating or if I'm single. I'm an open book. Let's talk about it after the business deal is done. Let's talk about after the pitch is finished. And that's just, you kind of have to go with the flow. I take it day by day, honestly. Oh my gosh.
Day by
Just
day,
like do
moment
it.
by moment. If
Yeah.
you're listening, definitely go check out Bo on TikTok. She has some really unfiltered stories out there,
Very.
and they are absolutely iconic, and I love listening to them every single moment of the day. So we're in our last little section, and I like this to be the beyond the trenches section. So this is all positive butterflies
Love
and
it.
happiness. So beyond the trenches for you, where do you see yourself? Like, what is beyond the trenches for you? You've been in this for 4 years. You're raising capital. You haven't reached your final destination, but what does that final death look like for you personally and for Ophelia?
Well, we've had a lot of people like, especially in most of the partnerships that we do, it's the word of acquisition is always thrown around
Mhm.
because I think with the way that technology is running its course right now, that's kind of, where we're headed of, okay, like who can we strategically help the most? Who can be that one it player? Kind of like dating, like who can be that one knight in shining armor that we accomplish the most with? Do I know where I will be in 5 years from now? No. I would like to say on a more personal level that I hope that I have a fiance or a boyfriend. I hate to say, or that I'm in a relationship as the founder of someone championing relationships and love and human connection. I would like to be one of those, yes, she did it kind of stories. If
Mm.
she can do it, if, a young, successful, feminine girl who did this and, put her heart out there and put herself out there, if she can do it, then like I will come to me too. But on a more business and technical, where will I be in 5 years? I hope that we establish that in person is a new form of technology and that it is here to stay and that all technology has that integrated and incorporated on their platforms.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that so much. And for the crew members that are out there right now who are deep,
Yeah.
deep in the trenches, they may also
Yeah.
not be seeing beyond the trenches right now.
Yeah.
What has been something that has kept you through the trenches and keeps that vision of beyond the trenches alive for you?
Family, like the basics, family, friends, spirituality. I mean, I think you could guess just by the way I kind of float through um, this industry and the way that I handle things. I'm deeply spiritual. I have a very good relationship with God, with my parents, with my family and friends. I don't think that, and this is why community and in person and connection is so important because I really don't think that I would have been able to get through the trenches without having a really good support system. My investors, my mentors, I'm always able to go to them, run things by them. And something that I would say to them is that it always gets better. I don't think that anyone does this for fun. Anyone who does it for fun doesn't last that very long. I used to think, oh, it's going to be like the movies, like Wolf of Wall Street, like The Big Short. Like, no, not like that. Some of it's like it, but I just try to find lessons in everything that I do, everything, every mistake, every pivot, every challenge, every fight, every oh no, what's gonna happen moment. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Kind of like hands up moment. I just try and ground myself in everything and just remind myself that I would not be on this path and this journey if it wasn't for a reason. And my highest, I try, really, really try hard. I really encourage everyone to try hard and connect with the highest version of themselves that is out there and make decisions that that person would do. And usually if you do that, it leads you to the right experience, the right person, the right anything.
I love that. That makes me so happy.
I'm trying. You know what? I'm trying. Trenches don't just magically go away. They're always there.
That is what we are discovering here on the Trenches podcast, is that there is
Yeah.
always a new trench to stand in. There is always another hill to
It's
climb
a list. Yeah. There's always something.
forever and ever. So, to that person, what is something that you wish you could tell everybody listening right
Yeah.
now as a closing today?
Well, I think if there's one thing that I wish I could tell anyone, whether you're a founder or just someone listening, it's that trenches exist. They're always going to be there. If you're in the trenches right now, everything will change tomorrow. Your priorities will change. Your team will change. That's one trench that I'm particularly in right now. Like I was saying, the market will change. And there's just moments, I think, that you're going to have to move fast, but taking the time to really slow down and be adaptable. And when you feel like your world and your life is just kind of getting out of control and moving so fast to the point where your own voice and your own clarity is getting drowned out, that's the time to connect more with yourself. And you will question yourself. I question myself every day. I think I'm the biggest contrarian there is. My team gets mad at me for it. Investors are like, what are you saying? I'm the biggest contrarian. I will always question myself in terms of, is this the best strategy? But your own direction, your vision, and sometimes you need to reconnect who you are and yourself. And what I've learned kind of the hardest way is that your inner compass matters more than any of that, right? Like, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be perfect on whether or not you know yourself. You just have to stay firm and aligned to what actually matters to you, even when it's inconvenient and unpopular, because the people who build something truly meaningful in life are not the ones who never get lost. They're just the ones who keep going and keep moving and keep coming back to themselves. Something to me, if you're in the trenches, integrity matters. Integrity matters more than speed, matters more than status, more than money, more than applause. So if you're still at that point in the trench where you're still living for others and you're still living to just be the best and at the top, you're still living for opinions. And I've watched so many people in this industry and beyond, friends, to slowly drift into these choices that they later regret, and they're cutting corners, compromising their values, becoming someone that they once would not even imagine they would become. And of course, growing is natural. Like, you can become someone different, you can grow, but we're all supposed to change, but there's a difference between evolving and becoming better and losing yourself, right? What I'm still learning every day to that point is how to grow without abandoning who I am and who I truly am. And to your point, I think I will always remain openly empathetic, wearing my heart on my sleeve, leading with my heart, because there's room for both emotion and logic.
Absolutely. I absolutely loved that. Thank you so much, Bo, for sharing your origin story here on Trenches today. I cannot wait to see how you grow, how you build Ophelia, and what is beyond the trenches for you.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, crew members, if you're out there, go and follow Bo and Ophelia on socials. That will all be in the show notes at the bottom, all of her links and everything like that. If you're active in the modern dating world as a founder, as a consumer, or if you work at a company that's in the dating sphere, tag any brands in the comments of Bo's content. our content here on the podcast, and especially with Ophelia, so that the name can get out in front of other dating apps, other people who work there, so that more founders and brands can reach out to Bo and her team to get Ophelia layered into their innovation in tech, so that we all can build deeper relationships, partnerships, and build the whole sphere of human connections back. This has been absolutely incredible. We are going to hop off of this podcast and do a little bit of rapid fire. So if you're out there, check back in for rapid fires with Bo. Thanks, you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Don't forget to follow us on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Your likes, comments, and ratings make such a big difference in improving the show for each and every crew member. Also, if you're not already, come and join us on TikTok and Instagram at Trenches the Podcast, where we don't just share clips, we're creating a network of co-builders in the comments. Each post is designed to be a truly impactful addition to your scroll that will actually help you improve your journey in many different ways. Now, since you're already a part of the crew, this is how you step inside. By allocating to the fund on Patreon, you become a stakeholder in Trenches the Podcast and officially join our cap table. With access to private content, early drops, resources, and chats reserved for people truly in the work. Here is where you get the tools and the behind the scenes of what it really takes to get beyond the trenches. Your seat gives you direct access to contribute and make long-term decisions for our crew while finding community with fellow builders. It's time to take your seat at the table. Our mission is simple: make entrepreneurship less lonely. I'll see you in the next episode.